Well, hi, everybody. Brendan Gulick with you from the Cleveland Browns training facility in Berea with your Browns practice report here on Browns Digest. If you're new, please join us on BrownsDigest.com for all the latest news and info on the team. And we'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to our YouTube channel where we've got plenty of video content just like this. It is the day before Thanksgiving, and so at the outset, happy Thanksgiving. There is no availability for the Browns and the media tomorrow. The team is off for Thanksgiving. The team will practice, but the facility is closed to the media for Thanksgiving. But then we'll be back in here on Friday when we'll hear from Kevin Stefanski before the team hits the road to go play Denver this weekend. And I suppose I should probably wish you a happy Joe Flacco Day, because that's kind of what it feels like here in Berea. It was kind of the unveiling of the Browns practice squad quarterback, who might be the most overqualified practice squad player of all time. But considering Joe Flacco was not on a team for the first half of the year and working out, throwing to what he deemed as non-NFL wide receivers, he was doing everything he could to make sure that he was ready if he got a phone call from his agent that somebody was interested, and the Browns called. And so Joe came to work out here in Berea and is looking forward to the opportunity to be here with the Cleveland Browns this year. And I've got some sound I want to share with you from the locker room today. We talked with Joe, we talked with DTR and with Sione Takitaki as well. And Kevin Stefanski addressed the media after the open locker room period was over. So why don't we start with Joe Flacco in particular on point blank. Why does he still want to play football?
You've accomplished a lot in your career. You throw for 40,000 yards. You won the Super Bowl. Why do you still want to play?
I mean, to a certain extent, it's all I know. I still have a lot of fun doing it. I do feel like I have stuff left in the tank. So I owe it to myself to continue to push forward and try to play the game that I love. Until I really don't feel like I can do it anymore.
Well, if you can't do it anymore, then I certainly understand that. But if the competitive desire is still there to go out and play, then power to them. And look, I think the Browns are always looking to add quality players, and given the unique circumstance they're in with a quarterback room that looks awfully different right now than it did when the team was in training camp, nobody expected things to work out quite the way they have this year. Joe Flacco is going to be a welcome addition to the locker room for sure. So glad to hear that football is still in his heart, enough to the point that he wants to go out and keep competing, and whether he's on the practice squad or the active roster, or what his role might actually look like, maybe that's still a little bit fluid. Perhaps some of that's going to be dependent upon exactly how well he can practice, how mobile he is, what it actually looks like to have him out there playing. But his accolades and his resume is certainly pretty impressive. As far as his audition, what was it like to work out, and what has it been like for him to watch the Browns from afar this season?
For the Browns today, want to see how mobile it might be.
You have to ask them what they wanted to see. But I was excited to do it. I've never been through a workout since I came out of Delaware. So I was excited to get in there and do it. And I got to tell you, you want to go impress. So you feel a little bit of something when you're going out there and working out,
Joe,
like I'm sure everybody does. But it was cool, and it was a good workout.
Joe, sorry, 7-3 obviously speaks for itself in a lot of ways. But what are your impressions of the team, and what do you think it's capable of?
They seem like a very close group. And, when you're sitting back at home on Sundays and you can watch all the games, and, these AFC North games always tend to be good. So the Browns, they were probably on the TV screen a lot. And these guys have obviously really put it together on defense. They've run the ball consistently all year, even with losing out on, best back in the league with Chubb. So it's been impressive to watch them kind of just continue to fight. And, when you're here in the locker room, you hear about how close the team is from some of the guys that I know, and you can see it right away.
Any more you want to hear from Joe Flacco, that's all available in its entirety over on our YouTube channel. In the meantime, if you kind of look at the top half of the NFL right now, pretty much every team that's had what you would consider a great all the way down to at least a decent season, the top half of the league almost exclusively has their starting quarterback still in place from basically where they were in training camp, except for the Cleveland Browns. They have figured out a way to make this thing work with 3 different guys to start games this year, including a player you pulled off your practice squad in PJ Walker, who at moments was okay, but certainly had some turnover problems. And then this past weekend, for the second time in his career, Dorian Thompson-Robinson got a chance to show what he was able to do. And it certainly went better than his first start, which was on maybe 2 hours' notice against Baltimore earlier in the season. Baltimore certainly looks like one of the best teams in the NFL this year. So maybe that wasn't a totally fair evaluation of DTR. This past weekend, plagued by a lot of drop passes, certainly some in some critical situations. But Dorian figured out a way to mentally flush it when things didn't go well. And he led the team on a game-winning drive for the fifth time in 10 games. The Browns figured out how to win a game with 2 minutes to go in a one-score game and got it done. Special teams helping the Browns a big way again on Sunday. So we had a chance to talk with Dorian. He evaluated what his performance looked like after he had a chance to sit down and look at it on tape, and also shed a little bit of light on what it's like now for him to pick the brain of a guy that he grew up watching with Flacco in the room.
When you kind of went back, looked over, went over the film and everything, what was on second glance kind of your takeaways from your performance, especially there in the second half?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're going to have things every week you need to clean up. I think the biggest thing is as an offense, we played on time, try to negate their rushes as much as possible. I think TJ only had one sack, he had a couple QB hits on me, but other than that, I think we played on time, both in the pass game and in the run game. Stuck with it. At times it's not going to be easy. So that's going against a defense like that. So second half, getting a couple 3-and-outs. We're working to fix those this week, but ultimately I was happy with the game.
Dorian, I'm guessing you watched Joe Flacco growing up. What's
yeah,
like
I did.
Now to have him in the room with you and as a sounding board and somebody else that you can talk to?
Yeah, man, it's awesome. It's awesome. Anytime you get experience, which is something as a rookie you need, it's a great thing. So him, PJ, AVP, Ashton, everybody in the quarterback room, they're helping me out a ton. He just got here. He's still learning way around the city, so I'm trying to help him out with that. But he's definitely helping me out on the football side of things for sure.
I've continued to say this throughout the last several weeks. Dorian is a pretty impressive young man. He's well-spoken, and he's the kind of guy that's easy to root for. And so you hope that he continues to play well. I don't know if we're at a point where it's obvious to say that this is Dorian's team with Joe coming in to add some support. I think in the NFL, you have to continue to go out and prove it pretty regularly that you're the best option at any given position. And obviously there's a ton of spotlight on quarterback. Dorian is starting in Denver. That's already been established for sure. And I would think that if he plays well, there's no reason to think that he wouldn't be the guy moving forward. But who knows what's going to happen, right? And that's why it's really important for PJ Walker and for Joe Flacco to be ready to go on a moment's notice. Kevin Stefanski did not name a backup quarterback today. He said they're working through that. Whether or not Joe would be elevated off the practice squad, maybe they know that answer already and aren't saying so publicly. But whatever the case is, everybody has to keep kind of moving forward here with the mentality that you got to keep going out and proving it. And to Cleveland's credit, man, they have found ways to win in improbable fashion. It's hard to imagine a team 7-3 with 3 different starting quarterbacks. That just doesn't happen very often, if ever. But the Browns have figured out a way to get it done. Joe Flacco also said that Gary Kubiak is someone whom he respects quite a bit. And obviously there's a connection with Coach Kubiak and with Kevin Stefanski. And that was one of the discussions that Flacco had on, hey, is Cleveland the right spot for me? Was when he spoke with Coach Kubiak and said, hey, yeah, I know those guys that are coaching and leading that team. That's a great place for you. And it was obvious that Joe Flacco said, okay, your word is gold for me, and I'm good with that if you think that's a good spot to be. So that's it from the Browns locker room, but we do have a couple of cuts I want to share with you from Kevin Stefanski. First, his reaction on Joe Flacco, because it's the first time we've had a chance to officially ask him on the record what he thought of Joe Flacco.
First impressions of Joe Flacco.
Joe's done a great job. He and I have a lot of mutual people in this business that we know. I have not worked with Joe previously, but has been in a lot of systems. So somebody that I can talk to about different systems, different coaches, things he's called, things in the past. So a wealth of knowledge and a great resource for not just the quarterback room, but this entire team.
He doesn't feel the He said he doesn't feel the need to necessarily put Dorian at ease, knowing that he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback and what have you. Have you had those conversations with him though about what his role is and how he's going to kind of blend in here?
Yeah, he's a pro. He just has to be a great teammate, and that's what he's done. And part of being a great teammate is showing up and doing your job. And think about all the guys we've had over the years, veterans that provide great leadership without having to say much. We have guys on our roster now that do that. So Joe's just going to be himself in his own unique and authentic way, and help this football team by the way he prepares.
Who your number 2 quarterback in Denver is going to be?
We'll worry about all the roster stuff, throughout the weeks, but no.
Kevin, did you observe the little workout with Flacco?
Yes.
Taking his mobility at age 38.
Looked better than you at 38.
That was the funniest moment of the press conference for sure, and Tony certainly took it in stride. It was a funny moment from Kevin Stefanski. Obviously, the Browns wouldn't have signed Joe Flacco if they didn't feel that his athleticism was up to snuff. And Joe hasn't been training with NFL talent as he was waiting to see if the opportunity would come for him to get into the league for his 16th year. But he clearly passed whatever workout checklist the Browns had for him, or else he wouldn't be here. In the meantime, it's not just about Joe Flacco here. By the way, the Browns are playing pretty good football, right? The guys that are already here and have been here are performing at a really high level, especially on the defensive side. Kevin Stefanski was asked about the opportunity coming up against these Denver Broncos, who seemingly have figured it out. If you haven't paid particularly close attention to Denver this year, they didn't have a great record right out of the gate, but they were losing games by 1 or 2 points, and they were doing so in painstakingly, close, disappointing fashion. And they've flipped that script now in largely because of turnovers. And that's something that Kevin Stefanski really wanted to point out.
Kevin, you were obviously complimentary of what Denver's done in these last couple of weeks. First 4 weeks of the season, they lost 3 games by 1 point. And now if you look at that 4-game win streak, they've won 3 of their last 4 games by 1 or 2 points. Turnovers, obviously part of that, but are you noticing that they're doing something differently that's kind of trying to flip those once tight games?
Yeah, there's always little nuances to scheme that you adjust as the season goes on. And you come into a season thinking you're going to be doing one thing, and you oftentimes adjust based on what's in front of you and how you're doing. So there's certainly things that they're adjusting from a schematic standpoint, but I can't overstate how important that turnover margin is when you're talking about winning and losing.
Well, it's pretty obvious the Browns have made it a priority to take care of the football this year, and the games in which they have lost the turnover battle, those are the games that have been really frustrating and haven't always resulted in losing the game, but have made for far more dramatic moments than they otherwise would have needed to. Dorian Thompson-Robinson obviously only threw 1 interception this weekend, and you could probably argue that it wasn't necessarily his fault the way that interception came about, but it was a critical turnover for sure. And in a game where the Browns only gave up 1 touchdown on a 74-yard run, I don't want to call it totally a broken play, but 1 missed tackle and then boom, gone. Turnovers have that same kind of impact on a game where, you might think you've got something going and then suddenly you don't. So where Denver has been really good about forcing turnovers defensively, the Browns have to continue to play the kind of football they want with this situation at quarterback. And I say that with all due respect because DTR has only played 2 games in the NFL. This team wants to win games because they're going to bring you down in the mud with them. They're going to run the football, and they're going to be really physical up front, and they're going to try to suffocate you defensively. I don't think anybody's looking at the Cleveland offense right now and expecting them to have some great aerial attack. Maybe we're surprised somewhere along the way, and that happens, but we haven't really seen that on film of late. And so you got to hold on to the football if you're running it, and when you do have opportunities to try and take some chances down the field, you got to be really measured with those. So those are big keys for the Browns as they get ready for Denver here this weekend. Again, tomorrow, Thanksgiving closed for the media here in the facility, so we won't have any additional content for you tomorrow, but we will be back on Friday and look forward to seeing you then. Brendan Gulick from Berea, happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for joining us here on Browns Digest.